Rise and shine. It's 6:30 a.m. You crack open your eyes only to discover a smoking hot, super sexy, and curvaceous young lady lying next to you. Hold up, is that a snake tail? Oh, it absolutely is. Her name is Miia, and she's a Lamia, half human, half snake, giving a whole new meaning to snakes on a bed.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Miia was feeling a bit chilly and thought snuggling up with our DarlingKun would warm her up. But oh, he wasn't down for any cuddling shenanigans. Instead, he suggested a warm bath to heat her up. But Miia was having none of it. He valiantly tries to escape her soft, suffocating embrace, but Mia's strength matches her lust, and boy is she strong AF. Miia decides to give DarlingKun a tight squeeze right on her. Ahem. Assets, and boy, things get a little wild. Her nippy pop out like it's trying to say hello because of the intense squeeze. As she slowly crushes him, it becomes a life or death situation as he's desperately clutching onto whatever he can grab. He manages to find her tail. Now, here's a heads up. Mia's tail is her weak spot, and this is where things start to get freaky. Mate kudasai. Did I just see what I think I saw? Is he, pleasuring her tail? Oh dear, it seems like that might be the case. He starts tugging that tail up and down, up and down, up, down, until poor Miia can't handle it anymore. Finally, our DarlingKun manages to break free from her grip, but lo and behold, here she goes again. She pulls him in for another tight embrace, claiming she just can't resist anymore, and shrieks shiz. Well, coming. She even sheds a tear. But what exactly is she coming for? Well, it's a mystery we'll leave to your imagination.
Yeah, boy.
After that animalistic exploration, Miia finally decided to peel herself off the bed, leaving poor DarlingKun completely drained and squished almost lifeless with his spirit about to leave his body. But being the ultimate caretaker that he is, he still treated Miia to a nice and toasty bath. And guess what? DarlingKun couldn't help but have a nosebleed when Miia strutted in wearing just her birthday suit. Poor guy, this won't be his last nosebleed for the day. Let's address the dilemma our dear DarlingKun is facing. I mean, sure, I could call him by his real name, Kimihito. But let's be honest, when Miia says DarlingKun, it's just so ridiculously adorable. So DarlingKun it is. Now, back to his dilemma. You see, Miia is head over tail in love with him. Pun totally intended. And at first, you might think, hey, that sounds awesome. I mean, they genuinely care about each other. There's a strong attraction, sparks are flying. Their mutual attraction is scorchingly obvious and undeniable. Sounds like a dream, right? Miia never forgets to seize an opportunity to show just how much she loves him, like when she attempted to lure him into the bath for a steamy session of Japanese mixed bathing. But here's the catch. Any intimate contact between them could lead to Miia being deported and DarlingKun landing himself in jail. That's DarlingKun's dilemma. It's got him feeling grumpy, to say the least. So grumpy, in fact, that when Miia pulled him into the warm bath, he had to resort to a blast of icy cold water from the shower to make her loosen her grip. You see, Miia is cold-blooded, and the chill from the water helped cool her down enough for him to make a daring escape. This facility doesn't offer mixed bathing, he declared, attempting to sound all firm and determined. After that little incident, he retreats to the next room and starts pounding his forehead against the sink. Poor guy. He's just trying to find a distraction to take his mind off the whole ordeal. Can't blame him, really. You might be wondering how on earth these demi-humans like Miia can live alongside humans in the modern world. Well, let me fill you in. It all went down 3 years ago when the government decided to spill the beans about these unique creatures they've been hiding. Surprisingly, everyone adapted pretty smoothly to having them around in human society. Anyway, after that steamy hot bath session, cue the sizzling background music, we're introduced to the shockingly irresponsible Agent Smith. Maybe she's just forced to act that way because her department is running on a shoestring budget and understaffed. Whatever the case, she shows up unannounced at DarlingKun's place. So, Agent Smith pops in uninvited because she's the coordinator responsible for ensuring that the caretakers are doing their job properly. And of course, making sure they're not getting down and dirty. We're talking about sexy time, folks. Gotta keep things under control, you know. She also brings up all the laws and regulations, making it clear that neither side should harm each other. But why was Miia with DarlingKun in the first place, you may ask? Let me spill the beans. It all started when Agent Kuroko Smith, the cultural exchange coordinator, showed up uninvited at Kimihito's door. No prior appointment, just a surprise visit. And guess what? She wasn't alone. Agent Smith had brought along a cultural exchange student named Miia. We've already met Miia before, but this was a flashback to the early days. We knew she was a confident and assertive young woman who knew what she wanted. But now we see a different side of her. We witness her sitting in DarlingKun's home, filled with uncertainty, shivering from the cold. And let me tell you, it hit me right in the feels. I couldn't bear seeing Miia in such a vulnerable state. From her perspective, she had no clue what awaited her in a human world. She felt completely alone. For all she knew, she could be stuck in a miserable house with a man who probably resented her presence, especially since he was caught off guard and totally unprepared. When she glanced down at the table, I could feel her misery, and it tugged at my heartstrings. Here comes the unexpected part. After a moment, she looked up in surprise. DarlingKun had left her alone momentarily to fetch some cozy blankets. He noticed she was cold and wanted to make her comfortable. When he caught her staring at him, he flashed her a self-deprecating smile. Here's the thing. This is an Ecchi comedy we're talking about. Yet, in this brief moment, it beautifully captured the silence and emotions with just Mia's expression and muted colors. It caught me off guard in the best way possible. Enough with the flashbacks, let's dive back into the story once again, shall we? The next day, it's time for Miia and DarlingKun's epic date, or as Miss Smith likes to call it, a field trip. Hey, gotta keep an eye on those exchange students, right? So off they go, hitting up various places like the arcade, grabbing some lunch, and even venturing into the daring realm of the lingerie store. This scene had me cracking up because as Miia was pondering over which lingerie to choose, she wanted DarlingKun's input on which one he liked best. But poor guy couldn't handle watching Miia undress and try on those skimpy undergarments, so he made a hasty retreat. But hold up, what's that thing he's holding in his hand? Is that her underwear? Anyway, as they continue their escapades, some mean-spirited folks start making fun of poor Miia, and the two of them decide to make a swift exit and find a hiding spot. And guess where they end up? A love hotel. Yep, you heard that right. Cue the eyebrow raises and mischievous thoughts, but don't get too excited. Nothing naughty happens. It's just Miia, once again, expressing her desire to be with her darling. All of a sudden, here comes Miss Smith, bursting through the wall like a superhero on a mission. Turns out they were tracked down through an ultra-sophisticated intelligence network. Just kidding. It was actually Twitter. Yep, social media warriors strike again. As they make their exit, the same group of jerks who were teasing Miia earlier reappear, and Kimihito decides to shut them up with a good old punch to the face. Talk about defending your girl. And with that, the episode comes to a close, leaving us with a heartfelt moment between Miia and Kimihito. She confesses her genuine feelings for him and emphasizes how important it is to her that he sees her as a girl first and foremost, regardless of her Lamia nature. Ah, young love in all its scaly glory. Let's rewind a tape a bit for those who missed episode 1. Our star Kimihito Kuruso, or Animal Girl Magnet, as I like to call him, kicks off the show all wrapped up in Mia's snaky coils. You see, 3 years ago, the world went all exchange student and allowed creatures from different species to bunk together. Miia, our half-sick sweetheart, joined the party. Kimihito's job is to host Miia. Oh, and don't forget, there's a strict no romance rule between humans and these fantastical beings. But Mia's head over scales for Kimihito, or as she likes to call him, her DarlingKun. So Kimihito got his hands full dodging Cupid's arrows while playing the best babysitter. Episode 1 ends with him being the hero, standing up against some bully who was giving Miia a hard time. Fast forward to this episode, they're doing laundry and Mia's floating on cloud 9, reminiscing about her knight in shining armor moment when Animal Girl Magnet defended her from a street bully. She's all in her love bubble. Hold on tight though, because surprise, feathers rain from the sky, and a harpy swoops in to sweep Animal Girl Magnet away. Looks like the exchange program just turned into an action-packed roller coaster. In the blink of an eye, Kimihito suddenly finds himself perched in a tree at the park. And guess who swings by? Meet Poppy, a harpy who's a blend of half human, half bird, and it's clear that she's not the sharpest feather in the wing. In fact, she's so bird-brained that you'd wonder if she even knows her own name. It's Poppy, by the way, not Party or Parpy.
Oh, nah, what's my name?
Now, our good old Kimihito, who's basically a magnet for half-human, half-monster girls, is just trying to have a nice, peaceful chat with her. But suddenly, she's hit with the hunger of the century and demands ice cream. And being the gentleman he is, he decides to be her knight in shining armor and fetches some. As they're indulging in frozen delights, Kimihito drops a truth bomb on Poppy. He tells her that if she's not near her host family, she could get deported. This shocking news sends her ice cream crashing to the ground, and this is where things turn a little haremish.
Oh my God!
There's a brief, uncomfortable moment where it looks like he's, feeding her the popsicle, and trust me, it's as cringeworthy as it sounds and looks.
Jesus is Lord!
I don't even think Poppy knows what's going on, and Kimihito's probably reevaluating his life choices at that very moment. But hey, at least it ends with a face full of cream. Ice cream, that is. I mean, just look at that. Poppy decides it's time to clean up, but here's the funny part. She sees a fountain and thinks it's a bathtub. And what do you know? She starts stripping right in front of everyone, including a bunch of wide-eyed boys who can't tear their gazes away. It's a public fountain, for crying out loud. Just when you thought things couldn't get more chaotic, in comes Miia, and the two of them start bickering. Kimihito, in a sudden bout of clarity, realizes that people are watching. Except, they're not. Turns out, they're all staring at a little girl stuck in a tree. Miia takes charge, attempting to rescue the little damsel in distress. But guess what? The girl gets a fright and slips and starts falling right into Poppy's clutches. The harpy swoops in and saves the day, with her trademark clumsiness and gracelessness. Bravo, Poppy! You achieved airborne hero status. Just when things seem to be settling down, a cop appears on the scene, thanking our crew for their heroic efforts. And then he pops the big question, are they a part of Poppy's host family? Now it looks like Kimihito tries to squirm out of it, but the cop's not buying it. Sweat starts pouring, and the officers staring even made me nervous. I couldn't help but chuckle at his misfortune. But don't worry, just when things seem dire, Ms. Smith arrives on the scene with the paperwork that proves Kimihito is, in fact, the host. Crisis averted. Later that night, as the gang settles down, we learn something quite surprising. Agent Smith, the one who initially wanted to take Poppy back, reveals that she intended for Poppy to be with Kimihito all along, before she ran off. It's like fate and destiny all wrapped together. And here's a real kicker. Despite Poppy looking like a kid, she's actually the same age as Miia. Why, you ask? Well, those harpies don't grow much. Flight comes before height after all. Oh, and one more thing. When Miia found out about Poppy's age, I feel like she nearly lost it. She stormed into the bathroom, gave the old 1-2 punch, and made sure Kimihito got out of the way. She insisted on taking the bath with Poppy herself. Poor Kimihito. I don't think he's gonna last long, at least not in this situation. The next morning, Kimihito finds himself on a grocery run, and I have to say, I feel a bit sorry for the guy. He's doing his absolute best, trying to avoid any harem mishaps with the two girls under his roof. At the same time, he's doing his utmost to be a responsible host. It's a delicate balancing act, I must say. As Kimihito rounds a corner, he's suddenly struck by a force of nature. No, it's not a car, it's not a bus. It's a centaur. And not just any centaur. Mind you, this one's got a drop-dead gorgeous human half and let's just say, some horse-sized assets. She's like a centaur supermodel. This centaur beauty introduces herself as Centauria, and I've got to admit, it's a fitting name for someone so regal. Now, here's what got me laughing. She believes in a peculiar ancient spell. According to her, in Japan, there's this wild idea that if you accidentally bump into someone while both of you are racing around a corner at high speed, well, congratulations, you're now soulmates. Yep, you heard it right. It's like a collision of destiny or something. Now Kimihito, being the gentleman he is, decides to help this damsel in distress. But before he knows it, she's talking about needing a master. Hold on, what? This is where our poor Kimihito reaches for his lifeline. Ms. Smith, the coordinator of this bizarre interspecies exchange program. Ms. Smith drops some knowledge bombs about centaurs and their unique way of seeking host families. Basically, they roam around until they find the right person to be their master. And while it doesn't take a psychic to see where this is going, yep, another girl's about to join Kimihito's ever-expanding harem household. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. Just when you thought life couldn't get any weirder, a mugger appears out of the blue. The guy's your classic petty criminal, snatching a purse and making a run for it. Centauria, with her unwavering sense of justice, is raring to chase him down. But there's a catch. She can't touch the guy due to the law. That's where Kimihito steps in. Centaurea needs him to follow the thief and apprehend him, and she's got a unique mode of transportation. Herself. Now, this is where things get a tad at sheet again. Kimihito finds himself clinging onto Centaurea's back as she gallops after the crook on his scooter. It's like a bizarre blend of action and fan service. But the comedy doesn't stop there. As they speed along, Kimihito's desperately trying to hold onto something, anything for dear life. You'd think he'd grab her waist or something, but no, he's clutching onto the most conspicuous part of her anatomy.
Oh my God!
Classic Kimihito, right? All this commotion leads to a hilarious and chaotic scene where they eventually crash. But don't worry, nobody's hurt. Well, except for Centaurea's clothes, which get torn to shreds. And yes, you guessed it, her extremely sizable assets make yet another appearance. It's like an accidental fan service moment, and you can't help but laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all.
Jesus is Lord!
Oh, and she dropped her sword midway through this chaos, and the muggers snatched it. Kimihito takes a hit from the sword and goes down unconscious. I was genuinely worried at this point. What if Kimihito's a goner? I mean, that looked like a pretty nasty blow. But it turns out the sword was a fake. Phew, life-threatening crisis averted. Centaurea is now officially part of the host family, and she lets Kimihito know that only those close to her can call her by her name. Oh, and the act of riding on her is considered a form of marriage, reserved for lifelong masters, at least according to Agent Smith. Talk about a whirlwind day. Now, what really tickles my funny bone is when both Poppy and Mia confront Kimihito about why he brought another girlfriend home. But folks, let's not jump to conclusions. It might look like Kimihito is a ladies' man, but trust me, that's definitely not the case. So, another day, another addition to the family. I really feel like this household is going to keep growing with more episodes and more girls on the horizon. Poor Kimihito though, he is overwhelmed and exhausted. Cooking, cleaning, shopping, and barely surviving. While they're all debating who gets to take care of him, he's stuck doing the dishes. Come on, ladies, give the guy a hand for Pete's sake. And that's how another episode draws to a close. In the previous episode, Kimihito found himself hosting not just one but two more monster girls. Before he knew it, they all ended up living under the same roof. In today's episode, our beloved DarlingKun faces a whole new challenge. 3 challenges to be precise. Their names, Mia, Poppy, and Centaurea. It turns out each of them had their hearts set on becoming his wife. Now that's a sticky situation, especially since these liminal ladies are considerably stronger than our dear DarlingKun. It seemed like he was on the verge of getting torn apart. But what's the deal with all this sudden talk of marriage? Honestly, it had me scratching my head too. But fortunately, they spilled the beans before I scratched myself to the bone. This all started in the episode's first scene, when Poppy and Centaurea were introduced in the previous episode. Mia, who had been living with DarlingKun for some time, suddenly felt the need to reassert her position as his number one. I have to hand it to Mia for her initiative, if not her honesty. To stake her claim, she put on her teacher glasses, grabbed a whiteboard, and launched into a lesson about the interspecies bill. It started out reasonably enough, with Mia explaining that humans and liminals should coexist peacefully and not harm one another. Then she brought up the rule that homestay students like themselves couldn't leave the house without their host family. So far, so good, and she almost fooled Poppy with her lecture, but Centaurea? Well, not so much. Nevertheless, you can't blame Mia for trying. As the argument between Seri and Mia escalated, poor Poppy's brain got fried. And I mean that literally, and she sought refuge in the bath to cool down. And here's where things get a little Ecchi. Now, I don't know about you, but Poppy looks like a kid, even though she's technically an adult. So things get a bit awkward when Kimihito starts helping her put on a bathing suit. They didn't show everything at first, and I genuinely thought they were going there. I mean, which hole are you talking about, Kimihito? During this suit dressing incident, Kimihito accidentally makes contact with Poppy's birdie asset, and this, of course, prompts him to jump into the bath to cool off. A scene that's both funny and a tad bit risque. But here's where the roller coaster really got going. Poppy, with all her carefree innocence, suddenly decided to take a leap of logic. She started claiming that she and DarlingKun could be like siblings. She even envisioned him as a big brother, which was odd considering she didn't have any siblings. But seriously, Poppy. Siblings don't typically engage in activities that involve sitting on top of each other, sharing baths, or attempting to seduce one another, especially when they're adults. It's all just a bit awkward, to say the least. To make matters even more confusing, Poppy decided to take things up a notch by initiating passion advancements. However, her enthusiasm quickly escalated to a slightly alarming level. When DarlingKun attempted to decline her advances, she didn't take it well. In fact, she was fully prepared to use her sharp, pointy claws to change his mind. Remember, Poppy might be petite, but those talons of hers looked pretty darn intimidating. It was like watching a harpy version of Claws, the sequel. Our feathered friend here clearly missed out on some of the key lessons from Mia's recent classroom session. Just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more chaotic, in swooped Centaurea, a shining armor and spirit. She gallantly rescued DarlingKun from the clutches of Poppy's affectionate siege. But our beloved Sari, as she's affectionately known, also had her own agenda. Sari had other things on her mind. She decided to take him to the park for some quality time. I get it, she wanted to explain her clan's unwavering loyalty to their masters. She longed to honor him as their master. But DarlingKun, ever the considerate fellow, didn't want the girls to feel obligated to view him as their master. He'd asked Sari what she truly wanted, and you know what she was after. Not anything overly intimate, just a simple hand-holding experience. Well, that took us off the tracks of romantic notions and put us on the path to wholesome affection.
So cute.
However, in the midst of this heartwarming gesture, Miia and Poppy unexpectedly made a dramatic entrance at the park. And just as you might have guessed, with all three monster girls in the same place, things quickly escalated to a full-blown liminal showdown. It was like they were auditioning for a role in a real-life circus, and poor DarlingKun was caught right in the middle of it all. It was a recipe for pure, unadulterated chaos. But don't worry, because here comes Agent Smith, the mediator, the problem solver, the hero of the hour. Or so you'd think. Her intentions were certainly good, but her execution left much to be desired. She decided to fire 3 darts, one aimed at Miia, one at Poppy, and one at Centaurea. However, against all odds, all 3 darts ended up hitting DarlingKun. Talk about things taking a turn for the worse. After a groggy awakening back home, Agent Smith requested that DarlingKun keep the entire incident on the down low due to potential legal issues. The 3 remorseful monster girls hung back, feeling sorry for their actions. Miia and Sari even promised to control their impulses, and Poppy vowed to stop bothering DarlingKun for playtime. But DarlingKun is a kind and understanding soul. He reminded everyone that problems were bound to arise in their homestay situation, encouraged them not to hold back since they were like a family. Now I can't help but wonder if DarlingKun has some kind of superpower like invincibility, because showing such courage in the face of danger might be just plain foolishness.
Stupid boy.
The surprises didn't end there. Agent Smith dropped a bombshell of some potential changes on the horizon for the interspecies exchange bill. The new goal, exploring the concept of marriage between species. To kick things off, she offered DarlingKun a unique opportunity to select one of the 3 girls as a potential wife. But you know how thoughtful the guy is. He reminded them that they were all still learning about the program's intricacies. And with things moving at lightning speed, DarlingKun found himself feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to proceed. As we approached midnight, the full moon shone in the sky. Miia, the charming Lamia, couldn't resist the urge to share some rather explicit thoughts about the romantic prowess of snakes. I think it's safe to say that the atmosphere was getting rather steamy. Poppy, who always adds a touch of drama to any situation, burst through a window butt naked with a passionate declaration of her desire to marry DarlingKun, all in the name of laying eggs. But just when you thought things couldn't get any wilder, Sari made her grand entrance, explaining that the full moon had awakened their natural instincts, which conveniently explained their rather enthusiastic love confessions. As expected, she joined in with the other girls, leaving DarlingKun in the midst of this whirlwind of emotions. Now, Kimihito managed to sneak away briefly to take a call from Ms. Smith. She confirmed what he had already gathered: these girls were undoubtedly smitten with him. However, when he woke up the next morning, he found the girls sleeping soundly while he stood there covered in bandages. In a truly selfless act of kindness, he pledged to go on dates with each of them, giving every girl a fair chance to win his heart. It's safe to say that things are bound to get even more intriguing from here on out. If Kimihito ends up marrying one of these monster girls, you can bet there will be a serious showdown among them. It's a recipe for drama, excitement, and perhaps a bit of chaos, maybe even disaster. Love can be a battlefield, and in this case, it might just turn into a monster girl showdown.
Danger! Talk about danger!
But before we spill the beans on who might be the lucky bride for Kimihito, let's take a deeper dive into the episode we just witnessed. Once in a while, the anime monster Musume takes a break from his wild harem elements and shows a softer side. There's a sweet moment where Kimihito and Centaurea hold hands, even though it looks a bit strange due to Centaurea's horse-like lower body. Kimihito's speech after being shot by Smith adds to the charm of the show and reminds us of how wonderfully weird it is. Harem anime, in general, is a bit odd, but this one takes the weirdness to a whole new level. And as viewers, we might be a bit unusual for enjoying it. Instead of trying to tone down the weirdness, the show encourages us to embrace it completely. After all, subtlety isn't its strong suit when characters have wings instead of arms. However, this episode falls a bit short because it doesn't fully explore the interesting ideas it introduces. The girls are shown doing things that any regular animated character could do, missing the chance to showcase their unique, monster-like abilities. We'd love to see more moments like Miia climbing a tree or Centaurea chasing someone on a scooter. Besides a few moments with Poppy flying around, the characters spend most of the episode chasing each other around the house. It feels like the show is missing an opportunity to highlight the fantastic potential of its monster characters. These girls are monsters after all, they should be doing more monster-like things. The lack of monster-like moments in this episode can be attributed to the storyline's need to set up future developments. The main goal of this storyline is to give the series a sense of direction by making Kimihito think about marrying one of the girls. It's a standard plot device, but it's better than nothing. At least it might answer some questions, like where you take a centaur on a date. Overall, there are still some meaningful moments in this episode. Hey, you still watching? Make sure to subscribe and smash that like button for a regular dose of awesome anime content. Are you as excited as we are for the upcoming wedding bells? Who's your bet for Kimihito's future spouse? We won't spill the spoiler beans, but rest assured, you won't want to skip what's coming up. So hang tight and stick with us until this video wraps up. The adventure is ongoing and it's bound to be a blast.